Well, it was a week of revelations on Capitol Hill during the first set of public hearings. Let's take a quick recap as to what just took place. Well, on Wednesday, we heard from the top diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, and State Department official George Kent. Now, Taylor directly tied Donald Trump to the Ukraine quid pro quo and testified that former National Security Advisor John Bolton opposed that July phone call with Ukraine. Next up was the ex-US ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch. On Friday, she told House lawmakers about the smear campaign that led her to losing her post. Yovanovitch said she felt threatened by the president's disparaging comments and revealed that a senior Ukrainian official had warned her to watch her back. Well, coming up this week, we'll hear from 8 other key witnesses who have already appeared for closed-door depositions, including the US ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland. We'll take a look at our next guest, who describes the impeachment process, saying there's nothing except for war that is more intense and more monumental than the House conducting an impeachment inquiry. Well, CNN legal analyst and law professor Michael GERHARDT joins us now from the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
So, Professor, you describe this as potentially more monumental, more intense than anything except for war. Just why is this so monumental?
It's monumental, first, because it has tremendous repercussions, tremendous, or at least possibly tremendous consequences. This process is the primary process that's set forth in the Constitution for addressing presidential misconduct. And one consequence of it could be the conviction and removal of the president from office. So that's huge. It's also monumental because it can apply to a lot of other high-ranking officials, and this is the single most important mechanism that Congress has for addressing presidential misconduct, and therefore every witness becomes important, and also every witness that the president blocks from testifying becomes important, and he's hindering this process as it goes along, which itself may become another basis for impeachment.
Professor, you're the author of Impeachment, What Everyone Needs to Know. Just briefly, what do we need to know? Because although you describe this as monumental, we know that only 2 US presidents in history have been impeached, and neither were removed from office.
That is right. And one reason for those outcomes is because of the Constitution. The Constitution has 2 different phases with respect to impeachment. The first is in the House. A majority vote in the House may result in an impeachment or charging the president with certain misconduct. In the Senate, you need at least 2/3 of the members present to convict and remove. That's a very high bar to convict and remove someone, especially someone as powerful as the president. Therefore, the Constitution really makes it almost impossible to convict somebody and remove them. The only people that have been convicted and removed in American history have been lower court federal judges. The presidents have something else on their side besides the high threshold for conviction and removal of 2/3. They also have their political party and the extent to which people are faithful to that party, and in fact, maybe more faithful to that party than to the Constitution, works oftentimes in the president's advantage.
So the chance of President Trump actually being impeached is pretty slim, right?
Yes. Well, I should clarify. He's likely, I think, to become impeached by the House, but it's unlikely he'll be convicted and removed.
Exactly. Look, I just want to rewind to the beginning of the public testimonies and listen to the opening statement of Devin Nunes, the top Republican member of the House Intelligence Committee. Just take a listen.
Ambassador Taylor and Mr. Kent, I'd like to welcome you here. I'd like to congratulate you for passing the Democrat Star Chamber auditions held for the last weeks in the basement of the Capitol. It seems you agreed, witting or unwittingly, to participate in a drama. But the main performance, the Russia hoax, has ended, and you've been cast in the low-rent Ukrainian sequel.
So he's painting this all as performance, a drama. What sort of tone do you think that set for the week, and how do you think that'll carry through this week?
Well, I think what we're seeing, and this is likely to persist through this week, is that the Democrats and the Republicans simply have two different realities they're talking about. On the Democratic side, these witnesses are oftentimes talking about facts, what happened on what day, who said what. But on the Republican side, it's largely not fact-based. It's a different narrative, a narrative that seems to be based on political talking points and also based on a rather complex conspiracy theory that somehow the Democrats have found these witnesses and they're just talking fiction. In fact, they're not talking fiction. That's actually what makes this monumental. The witnesses so far have been talking about something that's never happened before in American history. The possibility, maybe even the fact, that the President of the United States has invited a foreign leader to intervene in the next presidential election is serious business.
Serious business. I just want to point out the former advisor to Mike Pence, Molly Montgomery. She spoke to Foreign Policy magazine and said, if there is a silver lining, it is that the American people have a rare chance to see American diplomats at work and to understand the caliber and patriotism of their work. But with all this partisan bickering back and forth, how do you think that the diplomats are weathering all of this? Because listening to the ousted Ukrainian ambassador, I don't think she's enjoying this process, and I don't think this is looking great for her. I mean, how do you see this playing out from the perspective of those diplomats?
Well, I think what we've seen from the three diplomats that we've heard from this past week is their high level of professionalism. And they're actually educating not just the committee, but the American people about what their work consists of. They represent the United States. They don't represent a political party or anything else. They owe their duties, they believe, to the United States and to the Constitution, and that's right. It may not be terribly dramatic, but it has a high content of facts. And I actually think none of them is having a good time because, again, they're being pilloried by the Republican Party and Republican defenders in Congress. That's not fun. They're paying a high price in terms of alienating perhaps some of their friends and certainly some of the other people in the Republican Party. Again, that's very difficult. And why they're doing it is the important thing to understand. They're doing it because they believe something happened that is an abuse of power, and they're reporting it to Congress. Again, keep in mind, the president's keeping a lot of the people who also know a lot about this, like John Bolton, from testifying, and that makes it even harder for these diplomats because they can only talk about what they saw and heard.
Exactly. And as that former ambassador to Ukraine said, she said, this is not the way I wanted my career to end. So it's certainly a tough time for those who are facing those public hearings. Michael Gerhardt, good to have you with us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.